Three, two, one. Hey, internet friend, this is Magic Brad with the Magic Brad Show, and I've got a friend over on the East Coast, and her name is Deb Brown. Are you there, Deb?
I am. Hi, Brad.
Oh,
How are
you
you?
said you're from Pennsylvania?
Yes, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, to be exact.
Everything's a burg out there, isn't it?
Oh, there are a lot of burgs. Yes.
And I lived in Asheville, North Carolina. Everything's a ville.
Uh-huh.
And here in Minnesota, where I am, Minnesota, it's all got Native American names like Minnetonka, Wayzata,
Okay.
Minnesota.
Well, I do live near the Susquehanna River and the Connedaguinet Creek. So we have some Indian names here in Pennsylvania, too.
Absolutely. Well, wonderful. How long have you lived where you live?
I have been in Mechanicsburg since 1992.
Wow. So deep roots?
Yes. And Pennsylvania, born and raised. Grew up in Horsham, Pennsylvania.
Wow. I lived in the same house for 53 years till I got married.
Wow.
53 years. My brother's still there, and he's older than me. So you married and got kids too?
I am married. I have no children.
How about fur babies?
I have a fur baby, Queen Sheba Haley. Yes.
Whoa.
A beautiful ragdoll kitty.
Queen. That's kind of good. You wear a little crown.
Yes. She's actually more like a princess. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your business. I don't like to do these videos too long, so I like people to be able to consume it all and get to know who you are and what you do. And I understand you're in sales. And here's the interesting thing about sales is what's more important, knowing how to close a sale or knowing how to generate a lead? Because you got to have a lead to sell it. But if you got a lead that doesn't do anything, it's no big deal.
The lead gen is critical. Absolutely critical. So you can know how to sell all day long, but if you don't have anybody to talk to, it's a problem.
That's like if a salesperson is in the woods and they're selling something and no one's there to hear it, did they really sell anything, right?
That is correct.
So how long have you been teaching sales?
I have been teaching sales since 1993.
And what do you think has really changed about it since the inception of the internet? Because I know that that's disrupted a lot of stuff.
Yes. The biggest change is that people can now do tons of research about you, your products, your services, you personally, before they even talk to you, if they talk to you. So there are many businesses that seem to be able to do all online sales, others that still rely heavily on building relationships. And those are the people I work with.
Yeah, it makes sense because like you said, these days people can, oh, you're trying to sell me this. And then when you go and look on their social media and you find out they're a hypocrite, I'm not going to buy it because the trust factor is like very important these days. That's why I do like do video like this because you can see that I'm a real person.
Right.
That's not a green screen behind me. That's the real deal.
Same here.
Being authentic. I don't like the green screen thing. And I also don't edit these videos. If your cat jumped up on the table, that's part of life. And it shows genuine, authentic sincerity. So.
And I appreciate that. One of the things that you can't get just through the written word is that authenticity and sincerity. Words don't convey tone, and you don't have the chance to have a spontaneous interaction,
right,
or to get clarification. Because as people, I don't know if you've seen this or not, Brad, we tend to use labels, and we define those labels according to our own experience.
Right.
And we might hear the words and think, oh, I know what you mean, when in fact, I'm on a completely different wavelength, but you've made the assumption you know what I'm talking about, and then you draw conclusions based on those assumptions. And we are now on that spiral way out of control where there's been a complete disconnect and you don't even know it.
There was a friend of mine that used to do trade show sales training, and he taught exhibitors how to be successful. And he tells a story about he was at a telecommunications thing where they had all these fancy phones with all these little hold buttons and forwarding buttons and all this thing. And the guy came in and says, I want, no, I want that one. And the salesperson didn't understand, why did you buy this basic, simple one, about the same price as this one with all these features? And he said, I'm in the construction business. My workers have big fingers. I want big buttons. You have to get that alignment in right, and that makes the sale a lot easier.
Right,
But
right.
I wanted to ask you another question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, people buy for their reasons, and you
Right.
just gave a great illustration of that. And unless, as a salesperson, you take the time to ask, to find out what those reasons are, then it's going to be hit or miss. Buckshot against the barn. Some of it's going to hit, some will hit the target, and the rest doesn't.
What I was going to bring up is, because of the internet, the way it is these days, there used to be an old process of sales that I think is powerful, but I kind of don't like it. But it uses like neurolinguistic programming, where you build a relationship, then you seek out the problem, you amplify the problem and put salt on the wound, and then you just give them the solution. Then they end up buying it because they think they need it so much. What are your thoughts on that kind of selling?
So I think that there are a lot of sales processes out there. Many of them bring very helpful qualities, but being a connoisseur of sales, studying everyone who has published anything that I could get my hands on, what I've done is take the best of the best, and I've combined it with the strategies of the person that I think is the best mentor of all mentors ever. I put it together in my book, Sell Like Jesus. I truly believe that.
If you could show that book, because I was doing some poking around the internet and I saw your book.
Here, let me put it up there again.
Sell Like Jesus.
7 characteristics of Christ for ethical sales. So there were actions that Jesus took and behaviors that he did consistently when he interacted with people. And his bottom line, what he was trying to do was build relationships.
Sure.
So Christians know by heart that Jesus came to restore humanity, humankind, to relationship with the Father, his Father. So everything he did was about building relationships. And sales, when done right, is really about building relationships.
Totally.
And sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's shorter. Sometimes the relationships mesh and blend, and sometimes they don't, because you have different needs, wants, desires, standards. And so the whole objective is to communicate at a level of honesty where there can be enough trust that buyers don't feel threatened where they have to guard secrets, but instead can just be open about what it is they're looking for, what they need, what they want. And the salesperson doesn't use that against them to manipulate them, to get them to buy from an emotional spot, but rather takes the time to ask them even more questions to help them think all the way through the consequences of buying, not buying, what they buy, how important it is to get this solution. Or is it not really that important? Or is it not a solution they need, but it's just something they want? It's a goal. It's an objective they're trying to reach. A good salesperson is going to ask the buyer questions that they didn't even think to ask about, that they didn't even think to research about. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I bought a computer a few years back. I thought I knew what I needed. So I got online and I didn't buy something out of the box. I ordered specific features and capabilities. Well, I was working under the assumption that all computers came with the right jacks to be able to hook into projectors.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't. The reason I didn't talk to a salesperson is because I had tried, and all they did was try to push what they had in stock. So I went off and did it on my own. Well, only to find out I get to this place where I have to do a presentation with a projector, and I don't have what I need. I don't have the plug. I need an adapter. Well, then go find an adapter on your lunch break when you're teaching an all-day workshop. Needless to say, that's pain that caused me to ask more questions the next time I bought a computer.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. I was just going to say that.
What I would have loved would have been a sales rep who said, what are you using the computer for?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do presentations with a TV, an overhead projector? You know, just those simple, practical questions from a computer salesperson would have saved me $1,500.
And then you'd go back to that place.
Right. Because I trust them, because they took the time to slow me down to ask me the questions that I didn't even think to ask or know about, because they're the expert in their product or service. So that's how salespeople can use their expertise, use it in questions instead of, hey, let me tell you how great this is and how wonderful it is, and Nick can do this, Nick can do that. Well, what if I don't care about all those things? And you just told me all those things. Now I'm going to tell you the price is too high. Why? Because I don't want all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what I do is teach people how to completely shift the dynamic of a sales conversation out of convincing into being of service. How can I help you make a good decision about whether or not what I have to offer is good for you?
You know, a lot of times it's important to have someone like you to be able to talk to about something like that, because you can go on to YouTube and learn about sales, or you can grab a book, and even if we got your book, if we didn't read it correctly, we wouldn't understand it. So hopefully you wrote it real well. But I think it's good also to be able to communicate with you at a live event or like on a Zoom call like this, and be able to ask those questions. Because like right now you're selling, right? You're selling to people that are hearing things. So it'd be nice if they were there so they can hear the questions that you might ask them and interact.
Yes, there's no substitute for the dialogue, for the real time. What I do as a sales coach, so I'm not just a trainer. I do facilitated workshops, very important to distinguish. I don't just talk at people. I know the material so well that I can take your experience when I understand where you're coming from, and I can customize and teach the material in your language and the language of your business. So I am doing the translation from theory to practice. So when I work with lawyers, I don't talk about sales. I talk about business development. I talk about developing your referral network, because for law firms, most of their business is through referral resources.
Right.
But when I'm talking to someone who's doing construction and they're working with homeowners, so this is a business to consumer kind of environment, we talk about, we'd have to talk in terms of what does the conversation sound like at the kitchen table? Right. How do you involve husband and wife in the sales call, and do it in a way so that if they disagree, it doesn't cause World War III. So it's all fine and well. I mean, I read all the books. I said before we started this call, I've read everyone. I have studied everyone. Literally, I've read hundreds of books. My shelf back there and downstairs filled with sales books, because there's something to be learned from everyone. But there comes a point for the business owners and freelancers that I tend to work with, where they've done everything they can on their own, and they know there's more, and they want to grow, they want to get better, and they've exhausted their own capabilities. So they need third-party input, somebody who can come in and very quickly look at what they're doing and say, this is great, keep this, and then see where the gaps are, and then help them go about very intelligently filling those gaps. So it shortens the learning curve. Yeah, that's why you hire an expert, is to shorten your learning curve.
Yeah,
If you have all the time in the world, no problem.
There's probably things that you can see from the outside that they didn't understand, and then they have that aha moment.
Right.
You run into that with the whole
Yes.
coaching world. So it's always important to get that feedback, because if you've been through there and
Exactly.
you've curated all those books and things into one, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us this, other than your book, how do we get a hold of you if we want to connect with you?
So you can get hold of me through my website, which is debbrownsales.com. So on my homepage, there are links to other resources online. There's a link to a free copy of chapter 1 of my book, and there's a link to my calendar. So if you just want to talk, free consultation, no kidding, no selling, just if you have questions, I truly believe that it's in giving that we will receive.
And build that relationship.
It's that relationship.
Totally.
I'll pay it forward. If you have questions about your own sales strategy and you want somebody to bounce it off of, I would love to connect.
Well, that's the way it works. You kind of just give, and eventually it comes back. I mean, for me, I summarize things into like the whole concept of business is 3 things. You got to generate leads, build a relationship, and then close sales. And using a nature analogy, it's planting seeds, nurturing the plant, and harvesting the fruit. And if
you read my last chapter, The Law of the Harvest.
You have to build that relationship, because the reality is the fruit will just fall off the vine if the know, like, trust, and respect factor is there.
Yes.
Perfect.
Totally.
Well, debbrownsales.com. I'm going to sign this off and beam it up to the universe, and we'll let people find it. And hopefully we can get some opt-ins and some phone calls for you to find people that want to simplify their sales, because I think people overcomplicate the whole sales process. It really is just about being authentic and genuine and building a relationship, and then people will buy.
I really appreciate you having me on, Brad. It's been a pleasure, and I want to know how I can help you too.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you for taking the time, and I'll get this up within an hour and get it off to you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Peace.